Baseball fans want their game pure, their stats pure, their heroes pure. But has the game ever been pure? This is the Purity Ring Podcast, pissing off baseball fans one episode at a time. Well, gather around the fireplace, kiddies. Grandpa Bauer's here to tell you a baseball once upon a time. Now, we all comfortable? Got your cocoa? Once upon a time, baseball. That's the sport you used to love. It was once called America's pastime, and Americans used to hold themselves up to it as the measuring stick of patriotism, as in,
America, what's your favorite sport?
Baseball.
Sandwich?
Hot dog.
Pie?
Apple.
And what's your favorite car, America?
Chevrolet.
Let me see, that's baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet, huh?
Right.
Well, you sure sound like America to me.
We are.
Well, then you better tell me again, because I just might forget.
We love baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet.
do you remember that? It's a little tough. Remember when you could not be held back in those scorching hot summer months from getting 2 to 3 friends and either going down to the schoolyard to play a little home run derby or the hideous yellow bat with what seemed like grip tape on the barrel and the wiffle ball that would come alongside it. And that ball would just break like crazy with even the smallest summer breeze.
Go! That is the longest home run ever! Ever!
Or you and 2 buddies, a tennis ball, and ghost runners on any or all of the bases. Yes, that sport.
I don't care if I never get back, let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame, 'cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Baseball. It used to be littered with clandestine jars in baseball clubhouses filled with greenies, the potentially deadly amphetamine, speed, or Pep-Pills that secretly fueled generations of players. Well, largely those are gone and nowhere to be seen. But they've been replaced with caffeine-spiked, vitamin-boosted Red Bull, Spark, and other concoctions promising energy are all the rage, lining glass-doored fridges and locker shelves, most packing no more wallop and presenting no more danger than a cup of drip coffee. Yet, few among dozens of Major League ball players say that greenies, or their chemical cousins in other colors, have really been relegated to the past. Discretion in this age of congressional hearings and calls for cleaning up the game demands less visibility and less discussion. More interaction around water coolers, bathrooms, or even out in the parking lot. You see, amphetamines were banned by baseball in 2005, but a little investigation and, as the mention of greenies, one-time Washington Nationals manager Frank Robinson, a Hall of Fame player who's among the most astute observers of the game, tightened his lips in a half smile and drew his thumb and forefinger together across them as if to keep his lips zipped. Among more than 50 players willing to speak on the record, guesses about how widely greenies are still used, and guesses are all anyone could offer in the absence of tests, ranged from less than 10% to more than 75% of all major leaguers. Back in 2005, just before being named illegal by Major League Baseball, the consensus among players and trainers willing to speak out was that 1, greenies were still used in baseball, the only question being how widely. 2, amphetamines are not considered performance enhancers that give players a competitive advantage, but rather performance enablers that get them through some games on little sleep. And 3, baseball should add amphetamines to the banned list as much as for health reasons as to get rid of another contentious issue. Some players say there is no fatigue in baseball per se, adding the old saying is, it's 5 minutes of action packed into 3 hours. So why would they use them? But there's a consistency among ball players that have opened up over the last several decades, and others who have talked with journalists and written books.
So we got a game in an hour, and I did not want to be there. I was tired of baseball. And a teammate walked in and said, hey man, looks like you're struggling. Comes back with a little orange and white pill. Without hesitation, I popped it. Within 20 minutes, it's a euphoric feeling I couldn't even explain. I couldn't wait to get my spikes on, my uniform on, and hit the field. It was in that moment that I knew I was never going to play baseball without this stuff.
It all revolves around the fact that it's a very long baseball season with very long road trips and recovering from nights out in the town. Pep-Pills are used for hangovers, the doldrums, the boredom of a 162-game season. Busted after testing positive for amphetamines, Orioles slugger Chris Davis tried to turn the conversation away from the nefarious word amphetamines and towards something more benign. A drug so ubiquitous and legal today in America that it sounds harmless. Playing that shell game with words, Chris Davis mentioned Aderall and hopes you're fooled. Don't be.
The Baltimore Orioles currently own a 10-game lead on the Toronto Blue Jays for first place in the AL East, but they'll be without one of their key players for the foreseeable future. First baseman Chris Davis was suspended 25 games after testing positive for amphetamines. Davis issued a statement and apologized to fans and teammates for his Aderall usage.
And that's where this episode of Purity Ring begins. Understanding that the names may change, but the drugs and their effects remain the same. Aderall is a performance-enhancing drug that is being abused in baseball to the point of statistical absurdity. In 2010, Radar Online was the first to report the abuse of Aderall and how when Major League Baseball banned greenies a few years before that, the sport saw a sudden spike in players diagnosed with ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and they were put on Aderall prescriptions. A medical expert consulted by Radar Online said the incidence of ADHD in baseball players is more than twice what is found in the regular population, and that this indicates abuse. Radar Online also obtained Jason Kendall's drug results, which were a part of his divorce battle from his wife Chantal.
Fly ball right field corner. Jason Kendall homers the opposite way, his second of the year. The Pirates in front 2-0 in the bottom of the first inning.
Kendall was tested for amphetamines and other drugs several times. Of 9 test results given from November 17, 2009 to January 25, 2010, at least 4 had results that were extremely high for amphetamines, which is how Aderall would be detected. A normal test result for a person on Aderall would be a score of 1,000 to 10,000. Kendall's results were 19,675 from a December 1st test, 23,032 from a December 21st test, 20,944 on January 4th, and 15,101 on January 25th. Dr. Charles Sophie, a Los Angeles psychiatrist to Hollywood's elite, told Radar Online a level of 19,000 is high. It's a significant number. Dr. Sophie said athletes, celebrities, and young girls are abusing Aderall for its side effects, which include weight loss, loss of appetite, and high levels of energy. Kendall's dosage of Aderall can cause rage similar to steroid rage, according to medical experts. In court documents reviewed by RadarOnline.com, Kendall admits to being put on 60 milligrams of the drug in the spring of 2009 until the middle of October of that year, a pattern that raises suspicions about baseball players abusing the drug to achieve better focus.
Kendall's fly ball to right center field. Jason has his 4th hit. Does he have a triple? He's got a shot. Yes, he does. Jason Kendall hits for the cycle. 2-run score. The Pirates are in front 11-1.
And Dr. Sophie, who has not treated Kendall, told Radar Online Aderall is prescribed to treat attention deficit disorder, but it's being abused by a lot of people. Aderall is street speed equivalent. Back in 2008, baseball commissioner Bud Selig had few answers for how it was that the numbers of Major League ball players claiming a therapeutic exemption to use ADHD drugs such as Ritalin or Aderall had exploded from 28 in 2006 to 103 in 2007. In a study 1 year earlier, about 5.4% of the total adult male population in the United States was found to suffer from ADHD. In Major League Baseball, however, the rate as determined by looking at therapeutic use exemptions seemed closer to 10%. Are baseball players a unique medical population? Or have they found a unique PED loophole?
So I finally asked him, I'm like, dude, every single day you are just... I don't think I've ever seen you potentially tired at all and not dialed in 100%. He was like, oh, I got a prescription for Aderall. And I was like, a prescription for Aderall? I was like, isn't that what like the college kids do? So they can stay up all night and just write papers. He's like, yeah, I need it because I have ADD or whatever. And I'm like, well, it seems like you need it because it's making you basically like a meth head energy. It seems as if that is potentially a cheating thing. He was like, well, I got a therapeutic exemption. I had to go through a couple of doctors and all this stuff. So I started thinking, I was like, well, I should do that.
Doctors claim that the use of such drugs by Major League Baseball players is at a level of more than 8 times what would be normal in the adult population, and have wondered how baseball allowed this to happen. Amphetamines have long been a ballpark standby, and their wide usage in past years got more than lip service discipline by management eager to ignore the issue. With amphetamines added to the list of controlled substances tested for by the league in 2006, it looks as though savvy players have found a legal loophole to get the performance-enhancing drugs they need, or at the very least, want.
It's not easy being green.
Adderall is the 21st century greenie, only better, because it provides a more controlled energy boost than the ones players in the 1970s and 80s received while popping pills of what we now know as Ritalin. And Adderall is easy to get because there's no lab test to diagnose ADHD. Basically, it comes down to the player's word. In Philadelphia, Dr. Daniel A. Hassar of the University of Sciences teaches about the abuse of a medication so dangerous the DEA classifies Adderall as a Schedule II drug. Some other Schedule II drugs? Cocaine, methadone, and oxycodone. In 2011, the FDA identified nearly 1,000 cases of psychosis in a 5-year period linked to drugs such as Adderall.
He raised the Adderall doses he was taking and developed a psychosis. The physician treating this patient was under the impression that the patient had a form of bipolar disorder and had developed a manic psychosis and began antipsychotic treatment. Unfortunately, the Adderall was continued. Psychosis did not resolve. When we saw the patient, he was delusional, had thoughts about his computer and his phone being hacked, had hallucinations, paranoid beliefs, felt that he was being followed, being observed wherever he went. After stopping stimulants and continuing antipsychotic medication for a relatively brief period of time, we saw a resolution of that psychosis.
Studies at UCLA show using amphetamines such as Adderall leads to higher rates of aggression and suicide. Back in 2010, Vanderbilt University student Kyle Craig killed himself partly due to psychosis caused by Adderall
Here it is
use.
again, and this one is drilled to right field. At his way back, and this ain't BP. Goodbye, home run. The Orioles take the lead.
Well, he's one hit away from this cycle.
Former San Francisco Giants first baseman and World Series hero Aubrey Huff said he was high as a kite
On Adderall. I felt like a kid when you're 8 years old playing Little League.
during the club's 2010 victory parade, and his struggles with anxiety and depression in 2 subsequent seasons were the partial result of stimulant use during his career.
Well, baseball is a game of mental toughness, right? And, you know, in a lot of ways, I think Adderall is even more potent than steroids or HGH because in baseball, you need to be mentally strong. And what Adderall does is it makes you feel invincible in your head. You're no longer afraid. You're not nervous before a game. I was the cockiest, most brash, arrogant guy you could ever imagine being around.
In 2013, and yes, I was as shocked to find out as you will be that he was playing in 2013.
This morning, 39-year-old star Kansas City infielder Miguel Tejada suspended for 105 games. The stunning news comes after Tejada tested positive for an amphetamine, reportedly Adderall, telling ESPN it was to treat attention deficit disorder.
A penalty that ended the career of the 39-year-old former American League MVP. Adderall is the drug that makes ball players immortal, much like Miguel Tejada, Aubrey Huff, and Chris Davis kind of immortal.
Tejada's name had already been connected with doping allegations in the past. In fact, in 2009, he was convicted of lying to Congress about performance-enhancing drugs in baseball.
On to our Hall of Fame tote board. Major League ball players mentioned in this episode of the Purity Ring that are in baseball's Hall of Fame include Bud Selig as baseball's commissioner, and Frank Robinson. Major League ball players mentioned in this episode of Purity Ring that are not in baseball's Hall of Fame include Chris Davis Miguel Tejada, Aubrey Huff, and Jason Kendall. One former professional athlete said that he was offered Aderall by a friend right before a round of golf, and the friend told him, "If you take this, I guarantee you'll play the best round of golf you've ever played in your life." So he tried it, and he said that he never felt the powers of concentration he felt that day, that he saw every shot in his mind before he hit it, that every swing felt perfect, and that he did indeed play one of the best rounds he's ever played. Now, imagine playing sports for a living, knowing that feeling, and then being told by your sport you can no longer use the substance that made you feel that way. You might not be physically addicted, but you're mentally addicted. Would you stop? Really? Are you sure? Those are the questions we consider our job, and to dispel and spotlight some of baseball's honest truths, and more than a few rumors, on the next episode of the Purity Ring Podcast. Copyright 2022. Real Guy Radio Productions.